Hey musicians out there, this is Zach. Just reviewing a guitar pedal today called the Cusack Tap-A-Whirl Tremolo. It's really cool because it's a one-of-a-kind true analog pedal with tap tempo. There's not any out there currently. It also has some really important features that you want in a pedal, like true bypass, so that you don't feel like this pedal colors your sound at all when you're not using it. It also has some really cool functions like the option button in position 1. It affects the volume to the exact tap tempo. So a tremolo is an effect that only affects the volume of the input as opposed to the pitch. Like the tremolo on a guitar is not actually a tremolo. That's why some call it a wah, because it actually affects the pitch. But a tremolo is only supposed to affect the volume. So that's what this is. Now, it has a tap tempo, like I mentioned before, so you can tap to the beat. It also has an auxiliary input, RCA, so that you can take the tempo from somewhere else, i.e. a MIDI output from your drummer or audio from somewhere else. And each of their pedals that have the tap function have an input like this, so they can all be synced together. If you have like a universal time clock or something that you'd like to sync it to. So when you have your tempo, the option button does quite a few things. Essentially in position 1, it fluctuates to whatever beat you set it to right on the beat. Whereas as you start to move down, you can divide it up. So it'll fluctuate 4 times per beat. So, you know, if you're playing to a fast song, you don't have to stomp on it to try and get it to the right beat. You can just do it by half steps, and then it'll be right on. You can divide it up into halves and quarters and sixteenths. There are also some other options which will make it accentuate the first downbeat of the measure, but then it'll kind of flutter off in a different time. You can mess with it depending on your song, obviously, but it's got some really cool features with that. Unfortunately, they don't have it labeled, so you're going to have to dig through the owner's manual to check that out. They have level. This is the overall volume of the pedal. It also makes it so that you can match the input of your guitar when it's clean without the pedal, and so that when you switch between them, they're fairly even. Rate affects how many fluctuations between the tremolo happens. Depth is how deep you really hear it. Wave is actually have to do with the actual sine, different types of waves that you can get, whether it has a sharp, jagged drop up and down, or a square where it gives each a little bit of time. So just mess around with it. I mean, there's so many different waves. You could have up to potentially to 24 presets. So dig around through the owner's manual. Conveniently, it's located on their website, so you'll be able to find it all there. Now, just to touch really briefly, you have this button down here. That's a bypass, or to activate it. So again, I mentioned the true bypass function that it has. When it's engaged, the button is red, so you know when it's on and off. The blue light shows how fast your tempo speed is going. So if I click it a couple of times, you'll see it fluctuate there. Now they say you only have to tap it twice, but you know me, I'm always on the safe side. Being a guitarist, I probably mess up a couple of the beats. Work on that. So I hit it 4, maybe even 12 times. You never know. Alright, so with that being said, let's hear it. So this is my guitar without any effect. And this is it with the effect. Now I don't have it turned up too much. Let's adjust some things. This is with the depth cranked all the way. You can see how it affects the volume, not the pitch. And now I have it engaged right on the beat, so that's exactly where the tempo was that I left it. Let's divide it up. This is what it sounds like when I crank the rate up. You can see it affects how many times it happens within the tempo. Kind of gives you like a nice shimmery sound. Let's mess around with the wave a little bit. Okay, so that's right on the beat. Kind of sharp. Again, the depth is cranked all the way down, so this is just to show you a very exaggerated sound. Let's ease up on it a little bit. Maybe a little bit more. Now it's kind of subtle. One other thing I wanted to point out is that the more you crank the depth, the more sharply the blue light flickers back and forth. So you'll always know, even if you can't really hear it on stage, when it's working and how it's working. Most people like to use this effect clean. So I'll go ahead and give you an idea of what that sounds like. But I'm barely breathing. So praying to a God that I don't believe in. I got time while she got freedom. But when the heart breaks, no, it don't break even. Just gives you an idea of how you could use it in a real life application. Obviously, it has a very pop-oriented sound. You can always use it as a guitar, as kind of a subtle pad sound in the background where you don't really notice it, but it adds a lot of character to the sound. But let's see if there's some other ways I can come up with to use it. One thing I wanted to point out is that a tremolo is very close to a rotary speaker feature. Back in the day, I don't know exactly what year, but somebody decided to take a speaker and make it so that it could spin around constantly. And these types of speaker cabinets were mainly used with organs. They're still put out by a couple of companies. Leslie made it very popular, and so most people refer to those types of cabinets as a Leslie. But so I just wanted to showcase how when you get a guitar effects pedal, it's not just for guitarists. I always like to mess around, and I've read in a lot of different magazines that the best thing you can do as a keyboardist is steal your guitarist's effects pedals. And you never know what you're going to find that you'll like, and maybe a preamp that colors the sound of your piano the way that you like, or in this case, a tremolo. So I wanted to showcase how it's very similar to that effect. I've messed around with the knobs a little bit. I've got the level at about 10 o'clock, the depth at about 9 o'clock, the rate is about 2 o'clock, and the wave exactly 3 o'clock. So I think that this kind of sounds like a Leslie. It's kind of a cheap way to give your digital sounds a little bit more of an authentic vibe. I'm going to mess around a little bit with it and see what else we can come up with. I want it that way. So as you can see, it can be used in a lot of different scenarios. Just mess around with it. It's a solid built pedal. You're going to get a lot of use out of it. Some people have complained that it looks like something you might find in a Happy Meal. I'd be making a lot more trips to McDonald's if I found things like this. Later, guys.